Hi everyone, this is Noor, and today we're going to be discussing how to get a level 7 in IBDP Business Management. I'm sorry if I sound a bit off today, I'm actually sick, but to continue with today's episode, we're basically going to be discussing how and what you should be doing in order to kind of get to a level 7. In my opinion, getting a 7 in BM is fairly easy. The content is also not very hard to understand. Of course, that depends person to person, but as someone who is a business major and as someone who has business management as one of the 3 HLs, I can assure you that's actually really easy to get a 7. I did in my midterms that were just a while ago, and these are some of the tips that I used and some others that I thought would be really helpful for others. So I hope that if you're pursuing business in the future, or if you are an MYP and thinking to take business, this will help you clear some things out. So first of all, you have to understand the syllabus. That is fairly easy with business because business isn't as technical as economics, or it's not very formula driven as any of the sciences, obviously, because it's a humanity subject. But the thing with any subject, especially business, is that it can be lengthy at times. So make sure you're familiar with the syllabus and that you understand the key concepts. There are different theories, so make sure you understand those and you know all the different topics. Definitely, secondly, go and study from the book. Your teachers in general typically make slideshow presentations to teach you in class, but they're not as in-depth as the book is. And I know it can be very tedious, but going over the book is so much more helpful than the slides, even though the slides will have the same information but not as detailed as the book. So do prepare from there. The way I take notes is I'll take notes from the lecture in class, whatever my teacher is saying, but I will also have a separate document and I would go to the book and copy paste onto the document whatever I think is personally more relevant to whatever we're studying and what is more important for that particular topic, because you're studying from the book and the examiners are given the content from the book to also learn to teach, because a lot of the examiners are teachers as well. So that's why I think going through the book is the safest way to score marks, because it'll also help you understand better and with more detail. Now, business management last year the IB announced that for business management there's going to be a new syllabus, a new formatting to basically examine and test the students. Before there were only 2 papers, paper 1 and paper 2, but now we have 3 papers, and paper 3 is a case study that the IB sends to you when you're in DP2, and you have to spend a particular amount of hours on that case study, and you will be examined on it when you give your official external DP exams. Now, my third tip is apply theories to real life examples, and this can also help with your 10-mark questions. If you haven't taken BM so far and you're in MYP, just know that there are also 10-mark questions, and applying real life theories and examples can be very beneficial, because business management isn't just about memorizing the theories. It's also about understanding how these theories apply in real life in business scenarios. For example, if you're studying chapter 2, which is about HR, and you're studying 2.4 and a part of it consists of recruitment, let's say, then you can also talk about headhunters. Headhunters are basically kind of like counselors, don't quote me on that exactly, but they help you connect you to a different job. They basically help you find a job, and they're also affiliated with different companies, and they find people for those companies. So that's something that you can use as a real life example, and then you can make it more specific to anything you read in the news. If you heard your parents or someone you know talk about something along the lines, and you can add that in your paper, but make sure it is relevant and somewhat credible. It can't be fake, it should have logic behind it. Also, practice applying your business concepts to the case studies and the examples from like current events or your own personal experience, because again, it'll help you score better and you'll also understand what you're writing. Now, continuing the case study part, analyze your case studies thoroughly. Your case studies, they're a crucial part of your exam. Practice analyzing different case studies by identifying what the key issue is, who are the stakeholders, what could be the potential solution, and also their implications. You can use relevant business theories to support your analysis and your recommendations, because when you refer back to the syllabus with whatever case study you're given, it's going to help you score even better. So for sure do that. The best way to analyze case study, in my opinion, is in my class, we haven't really started with case studies yet, but what you could do is you can take a news article from, like Time Magazine, CNN, BBC, or whatever journalist publication you prefer, and you can look up an article on a business and you can try to like examine the issue, the solution, what could you recommend them, things like that, just to kind of get the hang of it. And you can then ask your teacher to check it as like just extra practice, because people say BM isn't scoring. I personally don't know if I agree, because I think it's actually very easy if you just play your cards right, but that's with every subject. But BM isn't hard to understand. It can get complicated, but only some places it's fairly simple. It's like people make jokes that every answer in business management you could write hence leads to profit maximization and you would get the marks. And I feel like you can fit in profit maximization in like pretty much any answer, but you have to kind of like, if you're gonna mess around with the paper, like joke around in that sense mentally, like, I'm just gonna write profit maximization, but you have to really make it work. So for that, you have to really, on to my next point, you have to really develop your critical thinking skills, because the business management exams, they often require you to like critically evaluate the information, the arguments, the different business strategies. You also have to practice thinking critically, like about different business situations, and you have to consider various perspectives. In 10-mark questions, you have to give advantages and disadvantages, so you have to look at the pros and the cons of whatever you're talking about. And you also have to assess, in 10-mark questions, they give you kind of like a small case study thing. They give you not a case study, but like a scenario, and you also have to assess the strengths and the weaknesses of the different approaches taken by whatever the question requires. We'll also go towards the question, like a practice question in the end, so do stick around for that. Okay, next step. You have to use relevant examples in your responses. I did mention that previously. When answering exam questions, you have to use specific and relevant examples to support your points. These examples can be from the scenario given in the question, current events, whatever you've read in the news, or your own knowledge of a business practice. Now, I think it's chapter 1.5 or 1.6. I think it's 1.5 maybe. No, it's actually 1.6. I'm not sure. But either one of these is about acquiring and merging businesses. For an exam question about mergers and acquisitions, you can talk about recently Elon Musk buying or taking over, or I forgot if it was a merger, or I think he acquired Twitter and then turned it later to X. This is now a real life example, and you can talk about that. So do keep yourself updated with news. You can just go on like Google and just search up like current news, just to be a bit more. And you can like go to Business Insider. Business Insider, I think, would be a great place to start. It'll help you understand business related things pretty well, and also keep you updated for real life examples, because in every subject real life examples are literally the best way to score better, because it shows that you're able to apply the concepts from the syllabus to real life implications, and that is the best way to show your examiner that you are worthy of that level 7 and that you actually have worked to get it. So do that. Next point, you have to structure your responses effectively. Now, you have to organize your answers in a very clear and logical manner. You have to use headings. If you can use bullet points or diagrams. For example, business, they come with business tools. Business tool can be SWOT analysis and steeple analysis. For that, you can also make the SWOT analysis or the steeple analysis table to score better. And the way you structure your responses, it helps to make it easier for the examiner to also follow out with your arguments. So definitely go and try to memorize the tools. Not only memorize them, but also try to understand them so you can apply them where they are relevant. But also making them in your exam can also probably help you score better. If you're not too sure if it's needed, you can just ask your teacher for clearance. Now, there is a particular way to also answer questions. In BM, you're going to get 2 mark, 4 marks, 6 mark, and 10 mark, if I'm not mistaken. These are, I think, the only amount of marks you can get per question. Now, there is an approach which I think is so useful. It's called dead and deader principles. So for 6 mark questions, you use dead, and it's an abbreviation for define, explain / give examples, advantages and disadvantages. This is the perfect layout for a 6 marker. And for a 10 marker, it's basically dead, but you also have to add the ER. So it's dead for 6 mark questions and deader for 10 mark question. So deader stands for define, explain / give examples, then advantages, disadvantages, evaluate, and give recommendations. Now for 10 mark questions, it's very important to give an introduction and a conclusion. And 10 mark questions, usually examiners don't give more than an 8. So you really have to make sure you're putting in a lot of information, but don't repeat the information, because then it shows that you don't know what you're talking about or you don't have enough things to talk about. Give examples and expand on them, and apply your theory or apply a concept from the syllabus into that example and in its explanation, because that is what's going to help you score much better. So definitely do that, because it will be so much more helpful for you to score better, because I feel like it's a bit subjective. Some people say scoring in business is not easy, but the syllabus just changed, and the batch of 2024 will be the first one for business management's new syllabus. So let's see what the grade boundaries are. But usually a 7, I think, for HL is at 70%. So it's not all that bad, but you still have to put in that effort to get to that 70%. And they usually won't give full marks in these 10 markers. So even more, you should put in even more effort to get that 8 mark at least. Now, next up is address command terms appropriately. Pay really close attention to the command terms used in your exam questions. If it says analyze or evaluate or discuss, you have to tailor your response to the specific requirement of each command term, and you have to provide depth and detail where it's necessary. If it's analyze, they could probably give you a scenario and say, analyze could be give pros and cons. Evaluate could be, you could evaluate was this the right move according to this theory? Does this apply or not? And then you can give a recommendation. For discuss, you can again talk about the advantages and disadvantages, also apply the theories. For each question, you have to apply the theories and the concepts, both, but you have to do it in a way that it fits to the question. And again, we will be discussing a question at the end. Next step, you have to demonstrate your understanding of international business. So What this means is, given the global nature of business today, make sure that you understand concepts related to like international business. This could mean multinational corporations such as like Coca-Cola or L'Oreal, etc. So these international businesses, they are connected with things such as globalization, multinational corporations, and culture differences in business practices also apply to them. Let's say Coca-Cola is, functioning in Pakistan. It'll probably have a different organizational environment than maybe in France. So you kind of have to understand that because of language barrier, culture over there, there are some flavors of products that work in one country but not in the other country. So things like these matter, and you kind of have to be aware of it. So again, read up on business and what's going on in the corporate world. Like, just go on like Business Insider, CNN, just try to understand what is going on in the world, because it'll help you make better connections in your exam. Okay, next tip. Again, stay updated on business news. I don't think I need to go much in depth for this, but again, real life examples, like examiners will go crazy after it. Then they'll be like, oh my god, this is so good. Real life examples. Because real life examples, again, trying to make this short, they're really important and they will show how well you understand the concept. So definitely read up on that. And last tip is practice past papers under examination conditions. You can ask your teacher for past papers and you can time yourself while doing them, obviously. But if you just want some light practice, you can go on Revision Village and Revision Dojo and you can practice over there. I made my first podcast episode was about IB resources, so go and check that episode out because I mentioned a lot over there already. But Revision Dojo and Revision Village, although they're not free and only the first chapter of every subject is free, you can still practice those, and they're MCQ style, so they can ask you about, for example, for market research, which business function comes under market research. The answer is marketing and operation management. So is that the function? Even I'm forgetting. I'm sick, that's my excuse. But yeah, operation management. So basically it could be this, but they'll give you options like maybe finance and HR, or marketing and HR, marketing and finance, or something along the lines. But it'll help you definitely understand how to just to test your concepts. It'll help you just test your concepts, and they have different levels of questions: easy, intermediate, and hard. And I think that these websites are a great way to practice for your exams, especially for maths unrelated, but do check them out. And yeah, that's like all the tips I have. But another tip actually, do a lot of practice questions at home. Ask your teacher for practice questions and then seek feedback. Because if you're struggling at a particular subject or just a particular concept, maybe to clear it out, you could sit with your teacher, do a practice question, and then for feedback, you sit with your teacher and understand, what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong? And this will help you definitely improve on your mistakes. Okay, now let's move on to a practice, not a practice question, but a sample question of what can come in your exam. Now, if you do take the IBDP Business Management course, you will be provided with the book, I'm sure. Now, let me just check what the name of the book is. It's a really good book. It's called Business Management by Paul Hoing, I hope I pronounced it right, and it's 5th edition for the use of IBDP. So that's pretty much kind of the name of the book. It's very to the point, but they have different sample questions per chapter in it. For one of the questions is for chapter 2.4, I think, which is HR. The question is about Pfizer. Now, I'll just read the question's scenario. The scenario says, Pfizer is an American multinational pharmaceutical company. It employs around 7,500 people around the world. The company uses the motto CANI, which stands for Continuous and Never-Ending Improvement, as a guiding principle for motivating the workforce. Pfizer uses both financial and non-financial methods to encourage employee loyalty. Now, this is a concept that you study in Chapter 2. Moving on, the company claims that 80% of management positions are filled using internal recruitment. Again, another concept, and it's also highlighted in bold in the question, and it's the only thing highlighted in bold. Continuing with the question again, the culture is one of encouragement and risk-taking rather than name and shame, in brackets blame. Now, these questions, they'll give you A, B, C, and D, 4 parts. Part A is a 2-marker, which says, define the term internal recruitment. Part B states, explain 2 likely benefits for Pfizer in using internal recruitment. Again, 4 marks. Question C, another 4-marker. It can also be a 6-marker. The C part, it can be a 4 or a 6-marker. And this says, explain why a culture of risk-taking is important to pharmaceutical companies such as Pfizer. Now, the last part is part D. To what extent might managers overestimate the importance of using financial rewards to motivate their employees? Now, over here, you will use the DEDER approach. We're going to define, give examples, give the advantages, disadvantages. You're going to evaluate the scenario and also give you recommendations. It's so important to refer back to the company as you're talking about the concept, because that's how you make your question relevant. If you're not going to mention the scenario and the company, the firm that they've mentioned, you're not going to score as well. You'll probably get a 6 or a 7. But to get the 8 out of 10 at least, you have to mention, for example, Pfizer, and whatever the scenario states, you have to refer back to it, and you have to relate it to the company. You have to relate it to Pfizer in this particular example to get those 8 marks. So this is pretty much it for today's episode. I hope that this was very helpful for you guys, and if you have any more questions regarding business management, you can comment or DM me on Instagram, and I will definitely help you out. I can also share my midterm with you as a past paper, and because I did get a 7 in both paper 1 and paper 2, not to flex, but I can share that as a solved past paper, because a lot of people like myself learn better with examples. So if you think that is your forte and that can, well, not forte, but if you think that can help you, don't be afraid to reach out to me. And thank you all for listening, and if you have any suggestions for upcoming episodes, do let me know. Bye bye.